Welcome to Deeges and Dragons. I thought this was going to be hard. Welcome to Deeges and Dragons.
Who wants some of the Ripper?
Take chance, baby. Woo!
Smoke down!
Who's clearly Captain Crunch? I'm a man of the people.
Shattered world.
Ripper, always there!
And welcome to another episode of the Degecast, the supplemental podcast for our YouTube show, Deeges and Dragons. I'm your host, Nate Lindberg. You can find me on Twitter at Nate Lindberg, and you can follow our brand on Twitter, Facebook, and most importantly, YouTube at Degetime. That's Degetime. Do you want to be part of this show? Maybe ask us a question, or maybe you just really want to tell Paul how much you love Trumpet Royale. Go ahead and email us, degetime@gmail.com, or give us a call, 617-506-9686. We'll read those emails, listen to those voicemails, and respond on our next episode. We're now 4 episodes into that Shattered series, and, we're wondering, will the gang save their favorite bartender, or will Incognito become the Dark Lord Cronin's next meal? But before we find out, joining me today, he is the Scar to my Mufasa, the Magneto to my Professor X, a veteran RPG player and game master in his own right, and a permanent member of our player panel, Tony Shermuxness.
Tony?
Tony. Well, while we wonder if Tony's actually alive or not, Conrad, maybe you should dial 911 while I give you your intro.
Yeah, sure.
All right. At the complete opposite end of the spectrum, he's our Degetime game master and resident psychology and therapy expert, the pen to my Teller, the Batman to my Robin, and, well, hey, wait a minute. How did I become the sidekick in my own intro? Let's say hey to Conrad Audette.
It's because I'm the psychology expert.
He reversed your psychology.
I guess I did. And now, just because I like to keep everybody on their toes, we're going to welcome a 4th member of It's Never Dark Enough to the Degecast, Shattered developer, Conrad.
Hey, that's not awkward at all.
No, not at all. Not at all. we have 2 Conrads on this show tonight. 2 Conrads on this show, and we're missing a Tony. So, we're a little bit short. But that's okay. We're still going to make this happen. So, Conrad, welcome to the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
I just do want to go ahead and say congratulations. I know you've got a little bit of an exciting few days ahead of you here. Child on the way, so congratulations there, and thank you for making some time.
Exciting, terrifying.
Yeah, I can.
Words.
I would like to say I can imagine, but I can't. I can't. But at the same time, man, I'm rooting for you. Good luck. It's gonna be.
I appreciate it. It'll be
right?
my second, and it's gonna be my second boy, so it's gonna be. It's fun.
All
It's
right.
probably not the word I would use, but
fun yet rewarding, right?
yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah.
Long term. I'm looking at the long term.
Right. Down the road.
I mean, do they have cool names? It's hard to top Conrad.
That's true.
So first one is Shepherd.
Nice.
And the second one, because both of my wife's parents passed away in the last couple months, will be Teddy, and his middle name is actually going to be Jean, which is a family middle name that the females have had. So,
no, that's awesome. That's awesome. Kind of pay tribute. I like that. That's very cool. Very cool.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, certainly.
That's how my wife named. She was named after 2 men, actually. Gina, named after a Jean as well, and Ray, being named after a Raymond.
Oh.
Huh. There you go.
I didn't know that. I did not know that. You learn something new every day. So, Conrad, just kind of curious what you think of what we're doing with Shattered. You've sat down, you've watched, seen the 4th episode now. Just kind of wondering what you think's going on. What do you think about Incognito? Is he gonna make it out of this arena, or is he gonna get eaten?
I'm not a betting man, but I probably wouldn't bet on his survival. I don't know. I love it. I love your players. Everyone's obviously had some experience playing. You've all really gotten into the personalities, and so I'm really enjoying all of them. I think at this point, I most appreciate Trumpet Royale and it's Glint's Edge, right? Or Glinting Edge?
Glint Edge.
Glint Edge.
G-E.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Definitely my 2 favorites thus far.
And of course, Glint
and-
Edge can't even show up tonight, or he's
Yeah.
dead. I'm not really sure. One of the two.
well, both probably, right? If you have one, then the other. But I think,
Schrodinger's Tony.
yeah. Well, just one of the first things I noticed, I think it was actually the first episode, was like right off the rip. GE was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna use my shadow clone thing." I was like, "Thank you." I had a player in one of my games who had that ability. I even gave her boots so she could make it move. Like that was just like magical boots. I was like, "Hey, you can also like move your shadow clone. It'll cost you AP, but hey, now it gives it more, flexibility." I think she used it like twice, 3 times.
Yeah.
That player
No,
was my wife.
No, God, Tony likes to try and because he's a veteran player and game master himself. So I mean, he definitely likes to try and hit all of the different abilities that Conrad. Well, especially in this one where Conrad laid out all the characters for the players. He likes to try and make sure he hits as many of those abilities as possible.
Oh, absolutely. That, and I definitely appreciate you guys putting up like whenever they use a new ability or something, throwing up that little descriptive text. That's wonderful. I think that really makes it much more enjoyable for someone who's trying to watch it. So.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much exactly what we're trying to do is throw up almost like the pop-up videos. If you guys remember that from MTV, it was kind of the
Oh yeah.
yeah, that's like what's always in the back of my head is kind of like
the fun facts that they throw up during the video.
Yeah, exactly. And Conrad will write out his different notes, and I'll throw them in, and you throw them actually like edit them into the video. And I apologize. Actually, the episode that Conrad watched, for episode 4. You know what? We're actually I'm gonna strike that. We've come to start calling Conrad ConDad, so we can
Yes.
actually differentiate between the two Conrads. So ConDad, the episode that he watched earlier was actually an unfinished episode of episode 4. We not only realized as I sent him the link that the green screen hadn't completely been removed, but we also never entered any of those pop-up videos, the GM notes or anything like that. I never put them in. So you actually kind of didn't get a complete experience for that 4th episode, but
Oh
hey,
no, I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah, it'll well, actually I was going to say it'll be out on Friday, but by the time people are listening to this, it was out yesterday.
Yeah, right. I don't know. I like the story so far. You kept throwing things at the players, Conrad, and it was a good time because you're just like, hey, you guys are minding your own business, and now you're being assassinated, and there's just this strange man here the whole time. Oh, by the way, your house is booby trapped. It's just like one thing after the other, and I loved it, and it was a pretty solid pace, especially for. I mean, if you're gonna try starting a series, that's a great way to do it. Just be like, and the hits keep coming, and they just gotta keep rolling with it. So yeah, no, I'm definitely loving all of that. And I'm really curious to see what their approach here is. But it sounds like their approach here is going to be based on the way they've been playing and some of the hints you put on next episode, that they're going to try and rig the whole thing and try to get off scot-free, which sounds like a terrible idea. I can't wait to see how that plays out.
That seems like a bold move, Cotton. Let's see how that works out.
Exactly.
No, definitely. It's gonna be a wild ride. Gonna be a wild ride, that is for sure. So to kind of segue into a little bit of a different topic here, I want to, when we talked to Jack from the Bodana group a few weeks ago now at this point, if you guys haven't checked that out, we did a special edition video Degecast that's up on our YouTube channel. You can also listen to the audio version here on the audio feed. One of the things that came up during that conversation was consent in gaming, and that up until now, it really isn't something we've completely touched on. I know it's come up a couple times here and there in either the intro or wrap up to Shattered, which the wrap up hasn't actually come out for Shattered yet. That's still a week or two away. So I do want to throw over to Conrad, who does want to kind of take a little bit of time and touch on consent in RPG gaming.
Yeah, so the first time that bring it up is extremely brief right at the beginning of Kids on Bikes, and
it was in Kids on Bikes. Okay.
Yeah, I mean it was first thing. It's like it's good upkeep to do this, but when you're with friends, you generally don't have to. And the thing is, we're always with friends when we're doing the show, so it didn't really come up organically again. But it is something that should be discussed, certainly, because we have the advantage of Nate and I have known each other now for 23 years, almost.
Jeez.
Very close to 23 years. And so,
God, we're old.
like what we're comfortable with, like we get that at this point. Like there's not much that needs to be said. And chances are you're not playing with people who you've known for 23 years. So getting out on the table, things that are uncomfortable or you just don't want to see is important. And you can come up with, like different codes and symbols. Like the standard is kind of just knock on the table or have a note card with an X through it. And when you're going about these things, there's also levels that come into play. And I think using this episode is a great example of it. So the players go to Incognito's apartment and, like, what do they find? Like there's evidence that he was taken. And we can kind of leave it at that. Like if I have the description as there was evidence he was taken, then it's just sort of like implied, how bad it was or not. And it's just sort of like, oh, okay, that's part of the story.
Not that I want to cut you off, but I do want to point out we actually now have an answer. Tony has not been taken. Tony is actually not dead. Tony has joined us here on the Degecast. Welcome, Tony.
Why, thank you. I had to escape. It was an exciting and thrilling adventure, but it's fine. We won't have to worry about this. Let's focus on the episode. What's important right now?
Did Trumpet Royale put you in his trunk again?
You know what? It's neither here nor there.
All right. Sorry, Conrad. I didn't want to. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I did just want to welcome Tony to the show.
No problem. And so he'll know exactly what I'm talking about as he's a player. So the room with Incognito, the level of detail that I go into there, like there's blood, among the room, and I can right, yeah, gasp. There's a pool of blood, but then I can just keep increasing the levels of detail and scrutiny. It's like, okay, there's like a very specific blood splatter pattern that's across the wall where that his jaw was dislocated with the way he was hit, and some like discharge from his ears is among, and they decided to remove a limb, and like you come across one of those, or there's like threatening notes to his loved ones. And a huge thing is age brackets. And so like the second that you go to like threatening children and beyond that, that's usually like that's pretty common. No, we want no part of this.
Yeah.
So then to have those up front, and then like, so if it must be, then like keep the descriptions brief or just don't have it at all. And if it wasn't clear up front, like we could all just be really into it in the moment, where it's just like, yeah, like you find like his guts are like all over the place. And I, start like talking about like the way that, backing up a little bit, sorry, to the guts, like to Genghis Gramps, like when he was shot in the stomach, like the level of detail of his injury there, it could just be in the moment we're into it, and then someone's like, ooh, like too much. So those kinds of things are really important. Then to go into a little more of the targeted therapy aspect of it, the backgrounds of several characters has trauma involved. I guess technically all of them have some form of trauma. It's just the levels of trauma that were involved. Moore's Glacius straight up died. Like that's pretty traumatic.
I would say that's about as traumatic as you can get, depending on how you died, really.
Right. Which we don't know. It's just related to ice. But several characters had traumatic experiences with vampires. And where it's not explicitly stated within the episode, we do know that Dirk, Billy's character, was in fact tortured. Again, this is kind of like a consent thing. How deep do we dig into that? And if you actually have some sort of trauma and we're now using this vampire background to be a manifestation of that trauma, so you can confront it in a way that's removed enough from reality, but also is a sufficient representation that you can face it in a meaningful way. I guess to reveal some more of Dirk's backstory is his military unit had crash landed, and it was covenless vampires who captured him, and he was separated from the group, and he was brought down, and he was just bloodletted for months, and that was what he was used for. He was just chained up and was unable to do anything else, and sat in this basement. And so, I mean, pretty traumatic stuff. And then now the characters are being introduced to vampires within the game, where we have Abraham, and we've heard about the coven, and that they may also be after the missile. They may just be after Incognito. They may have Incognito, but one way or the other, there are vampires now interacting with these players, and specifically interacting with Dirk, who has this traumatic background. And I'm not going to make up some sort of trauma that Billy has, but let's pretend for the moment that it is a manifestation of this trauma. The way it has to be introduced has to be delicate and also nuanced. So just Abraham approaching them, and he's a casual guy, and then we kind of talk about the coven and what they might want. And so they now exist within the game, but they're away, they're off camera, if you will. And that's kind of like one layer. And now it's like, okay, do we go to face them? And if Billy as a person with this hypothetical trauma wasn't ready for this yet, then I would detour the group at all costs from facing that. Right. But if it was time, then I would use story elements to steer them toward the vampires.
Now, that actually kind of brings up a bit of a question, and this is, where I'm not a clinician or anything like that. How would you best go about telling if it is the right time or not? It really just body language from the particular person, or are you basically saying that they would have essentially tapped their note card, or knocked the table, or given you some sort of a warning that they were uncomfortable in the situation?
That would definitely be something that you would do over the course of several sessions. Yeah. And you would find out that information outside as well. Like this is a supplemental therapy, and you would do like the breakdown after a game where you would actually talk one-on-one or as part of the group if there's a similar experiences, and you kind of break down where are we all at, and
that makes sense.
Like, how has our comfort level progressed into this? And it's definitely made clear too that it will be difficult. Like you'll tell me like I feel ready, and then it will be difficult to face because of course it's trauma. It would be completely inappropriate to just assume that it was time through like the course of gameplay. And you would definitely spend time outside of the game getting more information and preparing for that.
That makes sense.
Yeah, if I may, I actually have a great example for this.
Sure. By all means.
I've run a few games now, but I ran a Pathfinder game that was it was designed to be a lawful evil campaign. It takes place in the country of Cheliax, for those who are familiar. But basically the lowdown on the country is that contracts with demons and devils is like the standard, as opposed to looked down upon. Like the most powerful individuals in the country, all of them have contracts with high-powered demons and devils. That's just a fact. And so the players get thrust into this small town they're basically asked to do a little enforcement, and the mayor's like, you guys are actually doing a great job. I don't actually have a police force currently. Do you guys mind getting involved, because we're seeing signs of a possible rebellion sparking countrywide. So if you could help me clamp things down here, maybe I could put a word in, maybe you could start the climb, sort of thing, politically. Character's like, all right, dope. And I told everyone this, ahead of time. So I was like, you guys are gonna be lawful evil. Emphasis on the lawful and the evil. There's, you guys are gonna be allowed to do bad things, by law. And so like, okay, yeah. And my wife was one of the players, and I was like, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you good? Are you good? And she's like, yeah, I'm fine. So basically, at some point, things do start getting heated in the town, and so basically, they've been given, writ large to basically shut this thing down, throw people in prison, if you need to make a show of force, if you guys need to do like public executions, whatever you need to do. So sure enough, at some point, some things start getting hairy. They're like, yeah, we locked some people up, and they started doing public executions. And they're like, how bad do we want the example to be? And so most of them are just like, yeah, we'll just hang him. And then they're like, but this one guy, he's been like the one inspiring everyone else. So they're like, yeah, let's put him in an Iron Maiden and then set the Iron Maiden on fire. And I remember looking at my wife and seeing her be like, what the guys? And I was like, oh, this is probably a time where we should reassess. But like, it was a good example where like all the other players were like, yeah, we're gonna be lawful, we're gonna be evil, we're gonna commit to this. And I had my wife being like, but I mean, she's one of those people, she can't play evil characters. And so, I mean, that's why I was worried about in the first place, but she said she was good. I mean, she can't play the evil characters at all. She's the one who in Skyrim, like, feels bad accidentally throwing fruit at somebody. Like, she can't do it. So, yeah, the fact that she was like, yeah, I'll play the lawful evil campaign, I was just like, ah. But yeah, so making sure that everyone's on the same page, I'm familiar with that. And usually, I mean, like you're saying, we usually play with friends, right? Like, so yeah, some people go out there and find randos, but like, it's usually people you invite in and you play, and so you feel like you know where everyone's at, but that may not always be the case. And especially with, say, Shattered, I would say it's incredibly important to know where people's comfort levels are, because we do have a lot of grim topics, and we confront those in the book head on. We don't pull any punches. I mean, if you look at our monster list, they're in alphabetical orders. The first one is Ankle Biter. I'll give you a second to think of what that means. Like, that can be shocking to people if they don't know fully what they're getting themselves into. And so, it's definitely important to have those conversations. And I would say doubly so for a game like Shattered, where we have, undead by the thousands, where we have rampant racism, and all those sorts of things that can lead to ugly scenarios.
Yeah, where basically nothing stays dead. Like that concept in itself, where it's, and then they're, of course, like mindless too. So, it's like, oh yeah, I struggled with my loved one passing, and then they came back and tried to eat me. And it's like that's just so extreme. So yes, yeah, exactly. For a game like this, like it's definitely, you definitely want to do like at least the once over, even if like you're all friends. Like, all right, like here are some things that are in the book. Does anything stand out that you should just avoid, or, be ready to limit how deep we go?
Kind of always important to, get a lot of that information before the full game starts as well.
Yes.
Just kind of getting a general feel of, it's like, hey, this game could contain X, Y, and Z. Is there anything people wouldn't be comfortable with? Would be able to change it just to make sure everybody at the table is at the same level of enjoyment. Nobody's uncomfortable, because if somebody's uncomfortable at the table, inevitably they're not having fun, or they're not experiencing the tabletop game as the storytellers hopefully trying to.
Yeah, no, that's definitely, it's part of all my session zeros, has been actually since that game. As soon as I looked at it, actually in the guide to it, like one of the first pages is like, hey, this is a lawful evil campaign. Make sure you stop and talk this over with your players. Make sure that they understand that like they're going to be allowed to do some things and encounter some things that may make them uncomfortable if they're normally accustomed to playing heroic characters. And so like ever since I read that, I was like, oh yeah, I should probably make sure I do this with every game. And so I appreciate Paizo for putting that in there, but also making that part of like, that's my standard now. Session 0, we sit down, we make characters. I go, hey guys, like, how do your characters know each other? What's some campaign ideas that sound like fun? But also, what are you comfortable with? Like, can I use the ankle biters? Is that going to upset you if you see undead babies? Like, are you good, or should I just nix that part? Should I just skip that part? Because can I use the pain bearer? Can you handle, like, if I describe that to you, is that too much? Like, I can get as descriptive or as non-descriptive as my players need to be, and I feel like that's a very important skill for a team to have, is knowing where to draw that line. Because, a lot of times we get carried away trying to make the world as vibrant as possible. And with the game like Shattered, where you can have some pretty ugly set pieces, it's important to make sure that you use the right words and the right number of words.
Oh, definitely. And, it's really on the, the GM or the storyteller or whoever's running the game. It's not that just them telling the story at the table. It's the entire table's collaboratively telling this story as a whole. So that's also, very, very important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that you mentioned the evil campaign is my main play group that I usually right now obviously not, but normally attend. We too started an evil campaign also in the Pathfinder system.
Which one?
We were running I forget the name of the adventure campaign, but it was the heavy pirate themed one.
Okay.
But we all were just like, oh, this is a pirate themed adventure. Let's for the the first time that we've in like the last 10 years that we've been gaming together, it's like, you know what, let's make evil pirates, evil characters. It'll be great. But yeah, we all kind of had that discussion at the session 0. It's just like, where do we want, how dark do we want this to potentially be? What's the comfort level of everybody at the table? And it ended up being that we were probably the most merciful party that I've ever played with these people. Mainly because we gave everybody the choice at the beginning of combat. It's like, okay, surrender, join our crew, or die. And after a lot of people died, people stopped choosing that option.
It's got to establish that reputation, man.
Exactly.
Yeah, right up front. Right up front. That's great. I mean, it's not a tabletop game, but it just brings back a lot of memories of playing Assassin's Creed Black Flag.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, but if anyone was curious, the campaign I was talking about is called Hell's Vengeance. There's also another one called Hell's Angels or something like that. You get to play basically the opposite side of that campaign. You play people who are helping lead the rebellion through Cheliax. But yeah, I highly recommend it if you've got some people who are wanting to try something different. Lawful Evil is a ton of fun if you've got people who are willing to, to take it easy.
Oh, definitely. Definitely you need the right group for something like that, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Ton of fun.
All right. So, Conrad, did you have anything else that you want to touch on? I just didn't know if you had any final closing thoughts with
just that the character Cronan is like inside info is based off of Nate's character from World of Warcraft, and subsequently many other names associated, but where the Wretched had modifications to appear more like a Tauren and just like demolish people in the arena. It's
yes,
secret Easter egg.
Yes, actually, I did actually make note of that in the episode, which as of this recording has not actually dropped yet, and these guys haven't actually seen the final episode of this yet. But I did actually drop that in there. I put a Nate's editing note in there, and I was like, this is actually based off of my character. But yeah, no, that it is my Tauren Druid. We called him the Dark Librarian, and I know that came across in the Scarlet Monastery Library probably about 12 years ago, but I don't remember how we actually started calling him the Dark Librarian.
It was Conrad and I just kind of messing around while we were waiting for groups in Scarlet Monastery because it was vanilla WoW and there wasn't any group finder.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So it was just Conrad and I just shouting to beware of the Dark Librarian.
And that is Cronin. That is Cronin. He is he's the one that is now going to potentially eat Incognito for breakfast. All right. So no. Before we do wrap up here for the night, ConDad, did you have any other questions or anything for us? Anything you might want to bring up to the table for as far as like the gameplay goes, or anything like that?
I appreciate you taking full advantage of the fear mechanics. I know some GMs are a little hesitant to like add one more thing to keep track of, but I mean it's there to be played, right? So
absolutely.
I appreciate you doing that.
That's probably my favorite part of the system, and I haven't even played it yet.
That's always good. Yeah, no, I'm just kind of curious. It's fun to hear the way you explain things because I tend to play when I run Shattered. I tend to play it more almost like medieval tech level with like there's a sprinkling, just a little smattering of like some of the more advanced techs. So like when you're going on, you're like, yeah, they have security cameras and they have TVs. I was like, whoa, I don't have any of that nonsense. But I mean, it's really cool to hear like someone else's take on what they think it would look like. And I'm starting to get this more like grungy, almost cyberpunk. I can't quite say cyberpunk, but like, yeah, we'll go with like retro punk. Vibe for Pulse, and I'm really digging it. And it's definitely giving me this very authoritarian feel. I'm really digging it.
No, cool. And that's kind of the vibe that I got as well, just from kind of the description that Conrad came up with. The world and Pulse, and just kind of the story that he crafted was kind of that. Not necessarily cyberpunk, but kind of cyberpunk. I know exactly what you mean. I just don't know the exact descriptor for it.
Kind of on its way to become cyberpunk.
Yes.
Yeah. Cyberpunk's little brother.
Yeah, cyberpunk light.
All right, guys, this has been another episode of the Degecast. For the Degecast, I am Nate Lindberg. You can find me all over social media at Nate Lindberg. Again, you can follow our brand on social media at Degetime. That's DEGETIME. Let's go ahead and say goodnight to Conrad and to Tony. Guys, go ahead and say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, all. And to ConDad, good luck later on this week. We're bringing a new little one into the world.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me. Night.
All right. Take care, everybody, and we will talk to you next week. Have a good one.